Well, as we go on in, I'm going to, as I said, share a PowerPoint presentation just to make sure I can show you the main pieces as well as give you something that you can always go back to, because of course we'll upload this to the Upstate Creative Corps page. But we're also going to, if we get through that quickly enough, then we'll have the chance to do live demonstrations with your questions. So I'll let you know when to start putting those in. And before we begin and go to the presentation, we always like to begin our meetings with a land acknowledgement. So I am speaking to you from Nevada City, California, Nevada County. And together we stand in solidarity with all of California's indigenous people. We acknowledge that our work takes place on the now occupied traditional lands of the Nisenan and Washoe peoples, who are the past, present, and future stewards of this place. We make this first step in our journey to develop relationships and cultural competencies to truly support Native sovereignty. So as I said, feel free to put your own location and names and First Peoples in the chat, and I am going to begin sharing my screen. All right. But I shared with, of course, the wrong one. So let me. There we go. Why is it doing? There we go. Okay. Oh, see, I'm doing it already. There goes my glitchy thing. But let me, I don't want to give anyone a, here's the problem. I can't stop my video. Is that going to bother people, that little glitchy thing up there? It's okay? Okay. All right. So, as we go through this training, there's obviously the first step of what we're wanting to do is help everyone feel comfortable with getting to the Healthy Places Index and its data. So that one I feel like will be, hopefully will be set on. Also showing the different ways that you can look at project outcomes, like thinking about something that you're interested in, showing you what data and information is there, and then seeing how you can relate that information to the projects that you're considering doing. And then I also am going to begin by familiarizing people with other tools that are available on the HPS site. Because of time and the fact that I think it's more important, we go through some examples. We'll, you know, a lot of that we won't go into complete depth into, but we can follow up with questions if you have it later, because there are quite a few resources available that have some great underlying information. So again, this is just the basics. We're going to first run through why are we even looking at the HPI. Then, as I said, we're going to go through the basics so you can pick a location, know where to go, how to use different geographies to look at different community conditions. I'm going to give an overview of these other features, and then we'll move into the Q&A where you can bring forward your questions. You can ask about specific tracks. You can, you know, bring forward whatever it is that you would like us to explore, and hopefully we'll have time to get to a lot of those examples. So as most of you know at this point, because I think you've been involved with other webinars or Zooms that we've had so far, but one of the main criteria with any project is that we are directed to address one of the 4 state mandated impact areas, and you can find those all summarized. I won't repeat that here. It's very clearly on the Upstate page, but there's 4 areas of focus. So the first place to start is making sure your project is somehow addressing one of those issues, and then the 4 program goals. But then in addition with that, it's also we're mandated to prioritize communities that demonstrate the highest levels of need as indicated by the California Healthy Places Index. So I'm showing this tool here today of how you can identify those areas of need, as well as look at what is called the lowest quartile in the Healthy Places Index. And I'm going to tell you more about these terms as we go along. The map on the left is showing how the California Creative Corps looks at the California different regions. We are in the upstate region, the 19 counties in the northern part of the state. So we'll be focusing on that today for our presentation. So Before we jump right into it, I really want to make sure everyone's aware, because of our work going into all these upstate counties and listening to the conditions that people experience, what they're seeing on the ground, asking some really good questions of, hey, I don't understand, the housing score looks great for our area, and that's not our experience. I really, really want to emphasize the importance of the lived experience. It has become clear that there are cases in which the Healthy Places Index doesn't quite capture some of the both subtleties and obvious elements of rural communities. And we've highlighted that, and we continue to articulate about what some of those are. I'll even show you a slide that summarizes some of what we've seen. We welcome your input as well. But most of all, there are other studies in almost every community. Your community cares a lot about your community, right? So there's a lot of studies that are looking at the things that probably matter most to your local conditions. So those studies are very appropriate to reference as well. So we are not, the lived experience matters a lot. But let's jump into the Healthy Places Index, because that's the tool we have here. And it is a tool for measuring and evaluating community conditions. It's often been used to prioritize public and private investments, resources, and programs in California neighborhoods. It's new for the California Arts Council to be using it. Again, that's part of why I think there's a lot of openness to really looking at on the ground, how does it relate? But no matter what, even if there's some things that are missing, it doesn't, that don't throw the baby out with the bathwater element. There's a lot of things that really help guide people to explore questions as to, wow, why exactly are we seeing that kind of score? So first, I want to direct you to, got to move my little bar so I can even read this, but to the this page, the Healthy Places Index Learning Center. This is on the first page when we open it up, and I'm going to show this, but when you open up that Healthy Places Index, you can go to what's called over there to the Learning Center. First, you'll see that page you're seeing right there. And if you go over to the Learning Center tab, it'll open up another tab with 3 different places you could go. And I'm going to just highlight for you right now this tutorial videos, because there's a lot of videos there. Don't get overwhelmed. There's a lot of words. I even gave you how long each of the videos are, but these are all the videos that are available at that page. So it can show you how to navigate the site, how to get to the different information and what it means, the scores, how you can compare communities. It also goes into other decision support layers. So basically elements and information that is there that's not necessarily part of the HPI score, but it has information there about different community conditions. It was interesting to uncover things like access to broadband internet. There's a lot of layers within there. Then at some point I thought I actually counted how many, but I'm not sure if I see that number here. And then a bunch of other things that show ways that you can filter data. We're not gonna go into those as much here. It's really not as relevant. I think that's for people that are generally making large decisions in different counties and trying to look at some different aspects. But for now, we're gonna jump into the parts that seem the most important for us to know within our use of for the California Creative Corps. And the first question is, how do I determine what the least healthy tracts are within my community? Like I'm interested in this area, what does that mean? What are the other areas? What are those scores? So let's just jump in first. And the common, when you open up the HPI, it uses census tracts as the base geography. The geography tract is, the geography is right here where it says select geography, where I'm doing my mouse right now. And so it'll open up on tracts, and that's the census tracts. And I'll show you how we can change that to find some other geographies. But the first thing I would do when I open up this map is, if I have a location I know that I'm interested in, and I did this as well, I highly encourage, if you want to go to the Healthy Places Index map, even while I'm talking, you could do this because it can help you with questions. But I put in my home address. I wanted to know what my census tract was. I get to see, it'll zoom you into there. You can also zoom in yourself to an area with the plus minus button here. So I know I live somewhere in this zone, or I'm interested in working in that zone. I can zoom into there. And then when I put my mouse, clicker on it, it'll tell me what that tract is. So for instance, going a little further here, showing this. So for the geography, as I said, the geography can be changed here at the tab for the geography, select geography tab, where the yellow circle is here. And there are 12 different geographies that are available. Now I'm going to focus here just on mainly census tracts as well as zip codes. The reason I am highlighting on the left is a census tract map. On the right is a zip code map, both of our upstate region. As you can see, the geographies are quite different. The zip codes in general are much smaller areas than the census tracts. This has implications. You might notice in these colorings here, and this is a basic, I'll jump in here, even though I probably have a slide that does this right after. But since we're here, the different colors represent a different community condition. You know, looking at these least healthy are the dark blues, and the more healthy are the dark greens. In between are obviously the in between between the least and the most healthy. But there's another area that's called excluded, and that's that cross-hatched area. And that's areas where there's just not enough data. I'm going to actually tell you more about the excluded areas because it is very relevant for our upstate region. So I'll give you the exact definition on that in just a bit. But I want to just highlight here, as you can see, the amount of hatched areas really changes when you use zip codes. And that's just because the population went so much further down in that particular geography. Zip codes are what is used for the 18th Street funding, 18th Street Avenue, 18th, anyway, it's a funding source that's available to all Californians as part of the California Creative Corps. I'm not going to go into that here, but it's why I wanted you to know about the zip code geography. So I said I was going to share more about the excluded areas. Here we are in the upper northern easternmost corner of our wonderful upstate region, and we're getting Modoc County as well as Lassen County in this slide. And you'll see there's large areas that are excluded. So for the HPI, for purposes of statistical reliability, they only calculated HPI scores for census tracts that had at least 1,500 people, or where less than half or 50% of the residents lived in institutional settings, such as dorms, nursing homes, and prisons. They just needed to have that number for statistical reliability. So we've pointed out, of course, we have a lot of excluded areas in the upstate region because we have a lot of geography, not so many people in some of the areas. We also have some areas with a high presence of prison populations or other situations. So we have been guided by the California Arts Council for purposes of resource allocation and prioritization that we can assign the lowest quartile score, that lowest healthy score, to census tracts that do not have an HPI score. In other words, the excluded zones. That applies both to census tracts as well as zip codes. So I'm highlighting this just here for you in case you happen to live in an area or looking to serve an area that is excluded. Whoops. So as we go through this, you'll see that what we end up with, we have an HPI score or a percentile that comes forward. And this is looking at the relationship of there's 23 key drivers. And I'm going to show you what those drivers are that are determined drivers of health and life expectancy at birth. And this produces a score that ranks between 1 and 99. And it shows the relative impact of conditions in a selective area compared to all other places in the state of California. So it's like ranking, you know, if we're doing it in census tracts, it's ranking all the census tracts in California. I think there's 374, but I might have that. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong. So for instance, on the left, the graph we have is showing Trinity County, and it shows that there's an overall score that's the 7.1 percentile. That means that Trinity County is considered to have healthier community conditions than 7.1% of other California counties. So another example down here is looking at Del Norte County. And in Del Norte, I'm using this as an example to demonstrate quartiles here. Again, the quartiles broken up. The lowest quartile here is the dark blue. And a quartile is showing where the HPI score is ranked into these 4 quartiles for those healthier community conditions. And the scores for the lowest one is 0 to 25. So that's considered the lowest quartile. And then obviously so forth, 25 to 50 is the light blue, 50 to 75, the light green, and the dark green is the 75 to 100 percentile, or thus ranking the highest relative to other areas. Now, how the ranking matters, just so you know, if I'm looking at this data as a census tract, it's showing me the relative ranking to other census tracts. If I'm looking at this data as a county, that's one of the geographies I could select, it's comparing to other counties. So just be aware of that, because if you're at all like me that sort of nitpicks, I noticed, like for instance, for Sierra County, they only have one census tract. The data was different when I was under the county of the percentile versus the census tract. That is because of how it's relatively comparing to elsewheres in California. Okay, I hope I'm not overwhelming with too many questions yet, but if everyone's introduced themselves, you're welcome to start putting questions in, but then we'll still run through this and it might get answered. So once I go into the map, right, as I said, if I'm picking an area and I'm curious about it, I can either use that location bar and it'll send me right to it, the location bar I showed you in the beginning, or I can take my mouse and actually click the census tract, left click it, and the tract number will pop up and some information will come forward on my left. This is showing me not only the HPI score for this tract. So this tract is the 18.9 percentile. So it has healthier community conditions than 18.9% of other California tracts. It's also showing me this tract relative to the county average. I really draw your attention to that, because if you're looking at a project and you want to understand how it does compare within the county overall, I find this, a useful piece of information, because if the county is scoring similarly, you might want to think about if the work in your project might carry forth insights for the entire the county as a whole. If the county score is much higher, it could be something where there's some resources within the county to help support you in this census tract. So then when you go down and look below all this information, we get what's called these policy action areas. This is also referred to here as our overall community conditions that we're looking at for this census tract. And within these, they're broken up into these different categories, and each of these categories are broken up into subcategories. Those are what are called the 23 drivers that determine the HPI score. And that's what I'm going to show you next. The way you would access that is I would be clicking my census tract. We're going to demonstrate all this live, by the way. So click my census tract. All of this will open up. And then if I want to look more, oh, wow, look, that economic score is definitely the lowest quartile. I want to know more about that. I would take this. Someone told me what that was called, down hatch or something, whatever that little down arrow thingy is. I would click that, and then it's going to open up more information. I'm going to tell you more here. We're going to show you more on opening that next, as I said right there. But first, this is just a crazy little graphic that I made for those of you who attended a listening tour session when we came to your county. We showed this in almost every county. This was how each of all these policy action areas open up. And these are the 23 drivers. So for economic, these are the 3 indices that are measured. For transportation, here's what's measured. Each of these areas, I can click on a tab and get even more information. But first, let's go back to what we were talking about here as an example. So if I was looking at, now we're going to go to Plumas County, and I want to look at Tract 4. And I see it has the lowest HPI score for Plumas County, 26.5. So I'm interested to understand why that score is so low. When I open it up, it shows me that 26.5 percentile. It also shows relative to the county average, which is much higher, 55.4. So I can then look at that and come over to these policy action areas, which would be lined up not the way this nice little Zoom sheet is. And I can look at all the areas where I'm noticing a dark blue score. Now, that areas I see are housing, social, and economic. So I want to explore more on those. I don't want to deter you, though, just because education might be ranking with a score that's not dark blue. That does not mean that there's not, there could easily be one of these 23 drivers that is scoring low. So definitely be willing to explore your tract to look at the different drivers and what their scores overall are. So let's look at track 4 and see exactly what's driving it down. So I saw the economic, I opened it up, and I go ahead and look at economic. I see it's 11.6 percentile compared to other California tracts. And then I look at the 3 economic indicators, and by far one stands out as the one that is driving down this score, and that's employment levels. Now it has, I don't mean to distract us here, but I just want to say these employment numbers matter a lot when I see them, but it's been interesting to visit a lot of your counties and learn from people sort of an element of people feeling really perplexed to see really low employed percentiles, in other words, high unemployment, because they're like, we can't get people to come here to fill these jobs. So again, I'm going to just emphasize this over and over. The lived experience matters a lot. You know the information about your community and some of these conditions. So be willing to bring forward your local knowledge. Another area I noticed a low score is housing. So when I pull over housing tab, I see, although it scores 19 percentile for relative to California tracts, it has very low scores in housing habitability and the low-income homeowner severe cost burden. So these are areas I might want to explore more and understand. Again, if I want to know more about each of these, I click this little tab right here on the right. It'll open up more. It has amazing language as well that can tell you exactly about this driver and why it matters. So follow what it is that interests you especially. So here's the example. I did that for housing because I was like, okay, housing habitability is only 1.3. Let's look at that some more. So I can open it up and see more about this tract. I noticed that the tract is actually pretty much on par with the county average. So that's telling me there's something larger going on in this area with housing habitability. It tells me down here how the tract relates to the county, as I said, right here, as well as the state overall. It tells me what this indicator measures, and it tells me the connection to health. Now, all of these are information I'm just guiding you towards, because if this is something you're super interested in doing a project around, housing in Plumas County, you're going to want to dig a little bit into some of this information. It's just going to make your work a lot easier in your grant writing. There's just a lot of people who've put a lot of energy into this, and it can guide you to asking some of the questions of your local housing peeps or whoever you're working with to understand more about this condition in your area. There's also this button at the very bottom called Policy Opportunities. And so when you click that one open, this is an example over here that's showing more things that open up about opportunities to improve this housing habitability condition, preserve and improve existing housing, provide housing support during public health emergencies, stabilize residential neighborhoods. All of these have layers that you can click and open up and get more information. So as I said, there's a lot here. I
do have some questions
about that.
Do you want to?
Do they look like it's about that, or is it?
One is
okay.
From Andra. She's saying you mentioned that lived experience was very important at the beginning 5 minutes of lecture. So I think she wants to dig in maybe a little more of lived experience versus the data. That we're seeing at the HPI map. So.
Great. Now, it's a great question of wanting to know more on lived experience, only because this is a Healthy Places Index training. I'm going to stay on target here right now, but I will say we were in a grant writing workshop call yesterday, and it was highlighted in different counties, some of the resources of information to do with housing and health and other conditions. So lived experience, most of all, I'm indicating those studies that have been done within your county or by nonprofits that care passionately about different projects, or even if they don't care passionately, whatever, but people that are working on these issues. But for right now, I'm just going to stay focused because my overview arching thing is to teach you about this tool. And then if we have more time, we can talk more about that, or people as well can throw out other ideas of examples of where lived experience has really played a role. I'm also just going to highlight within this, when the screen pops up on the left to show the different policy action areas, it also shows about race and ethnicity factors. And so I just highly encourage that you look at this as well for the census tracts. It's very important that the people that live in the areas, all peoples are served. This is a tract that actually, I'm pretty sure this is Colusa County where, it's under my thing. That's why I can't see it. Yep, tract 3 in Colusa County where we're supposed to be going tonight, weather permitting. And this is showing the Hispanic proportion is 74.5% of people are Hispanic or Latino. I can open that up as well with that little tab, and I can learn more about where people primarily are from. So just trying to show you these tools and this abundance of data right there for you. Okay, I'm going to go into some other features of the HPI and some other observations. This is showing here, I just was showing, as I said, you can do different geographies. So this is an example in Del Norte County. And in Del Norte, because I noticed that the 18th Street Index wanted people to use zip codes, I was curious what the implications were for some areas. And in this particular area, I noticed that the area when I use the census tract is light blue because of the larger geography. It's pulling in much larger areas. And in the zip code geography, it actually was dark blue for this region of Del Norte County with a much lower score. So I am just encouraging you. I also noticed areas, I think it was, maybe this is even here. Let me see if no. In Crescent Mills, I noticed in Plumas County, same thing happened. It was a dark blue tract when you use zip codes. So let's see if I can get rid of that so I can read. So one of the things I just want to highlight here, this is not just to distract, but these are some of the areas that we observed in using the HPI data. And then in each, as I said, of these 19 upstate counties, we would talk about, does this match your experience? Does this match what you're seeing here? So these are just some of the areas I want to highlight that we really identified for the upstate region that that just do not seem to be captured as clearly as both make sense that should be for our area, but we actually need to get better data on this. And we've talked directly with the Healthy Places Index people about some of these factors. The two biggest ones I want to highlight are fire and smoke. And of course, the risk of catastrophic wildfire is an enormous concern for so many of us, but more subtle than that. So often when these large fires happen in upstate areas, so many of us are impacted by very high air quality index numbers, high quantities of particulate matter in the air. Many of us not only end up having to stay indoors because it's just truly dangerous to breathe outside, some related to a number of cigarette packs or something, and it's absolutely amazing to hear how damaging it can be to our lungs. So that has a huge impact on communities. And although there is some measure of AQI, it is not capturing wildfire smoke. It's not capturing all the sporting events, educational events, the big arts events and concerts, all kinds of things that are impacted by such conditions. So this is a really important area. Again, lived experience. You know what these are. You know how many people in the Tahoe area shared how many days they were indoors last summer and impacted by this. Reach out to your local communities if this is something of big interest. We want this to be included in your picture of health for your community, and it likely is a factor in your area.
We do have a question from Lisa. Is there a place to see the statistics breakdown by county?
The statistics breakdown, yeah, we can put in the geography, the county track. So why don't we write down that? I'll show you that, the county geography and how to do that when we do the live. So great, got that there. Forest density is another one. It actually, Healthy Places Index measures health based on forest density. For those of us that live in these areas, in the upstate area, these rural landscapes, we're really coming to understand it is not about having really dense forests that makes for a healthy place. In fact, our long periods of time in which we've had a lot of trees growing really closely together, a lot of small trees, they are actually directly linked with the catastrophic wildfire insect infestations, disease, even drought impacts. So a dense forest is not necessarily the most representative indice for health in our upstate region. So we've highlighted that as well, including data and projects that are happening where people are working at trying to create tracts that are less dense of the small little trees. Housing was an issue that came up in so many of the upstate areas, and it really seems to not be captured in a lot of the data here. This is not only because, think about this, is based on the census data from 2020, post 2020, post COVID, saw a lot of changes in housing, a lot of people moving into their second houses or purchasing second houses. So they had a getaway, a lot of B&Bs, a lot of displacement from wildfire, a lot of issues to do with housing that do not seem to be captured in indicators. There have been a lot of studies. I know the people up in Truckee shared with us about a really big housing study. That would be an incredible lived experience, local data source to cite to really better capture housing for a project. There are some other areas that are rural considerations you'll see in there, like retail density. A lot of people choose to live in rural environments to not be next to a box store. Park access. A lot of people pointed out to us that there might be parks, but it tends to, that there tend to be issues around that. It's less about if there's a park, it's more about, is it a safe park? As I said, I mentioned the employment levels. People said, yeah, my gosh, you're showing all this unemployment, but we can't even get teachers or doctors or people to move here. Another big area was power safety shutoff events. There's nothing that's capturing that. And that has a huge impact for those of us in areas where our power is turned off for prolonged periods due to the risk of potential high winds and wildfires. And that has a lot of implications for water supply not being available then for the farmer that, needs it for their ag lands, and all kinds of layers. Again, these are all things, rural considerations you are welcome to bring forth in any kind of project proposal. Public transportation subtleties as well were highlighted, especially in Sierra County. So sort of raced through that. I'm just gonna, those are gonna be some of the context. So I'm gonna suggest now at this point, I have other areas of slides that I'm going to, that would probably be uploaded to the page, just so you can all know about some of the other, I'm gonna do that, the other tools within this, but for purposes of our time here now, I think it's more important to show and live demonstrate some of these areas. Before jumping into that, I want to create a little list of some of the things you might want to see. So how's it looking in the chat? Or does anyone else put in?
Yeah, we have some questions here.
Okay, so let me actually just open that up.
The chat, I can relate the question.
Okay, good. I mean, maybe if you just tell me how about this, Gianna? I think probably I'm wondering if I've seen all these things on lived experience. I'm wondering, did I say something weird that needs correcting? Does personal experience? That's a good question. I think personal experience is always an important factor to bring forward, but I think it would be really important to back it with information from local resources that really convey it as a community condition, because this grant isn't intended to fund, it isn't intended to fund the personal experience. It's affected to fund the communities that are most impacted by least healthy conditions. So try to get your picture into the community for the data that you can bring forward. Yeah, hi Eliza, good. Welcome to Eliza. I'm so glad she's here.
And Katrina, if I may, my question before that, and this is the one I keep struggling with, this is obviously an overwhelming amount of data. Some of us have lived with this for months. So how does this information manifest in a successful grant application? Our immediate service area is dark blue, so I mean that's low-hanging fruit in a sense, but I mean what comes first? Do you pick your topic or your project based on the HPI, or do you come up with a project and then try to fit it into the appropriate keyhole?
Probably yes and yes, and I'm going to let Eliza speak to this one. Yeah.
Yeah.
And often, of course, as as projects that are close to our heart are developed, those two things fall into line naturally. But I would say start with the program goals. That's environment related issues, social justice, civic engagement, or public health related issues. And then look around you. Where are you? Use the map to identify or fine tune a community that you feel you can lend meaning to. And I would gently challenge the notion that the personal can't be part of this. I think it can. I think it's one of the things that artists do so well, is translate what's deeply personal to them through their lived experiences into meaningful communication about issues that matter in the world. So I think it's a yes and a yes.
I also see a question here I'm just going to ask real quickly, and because I want all of us to be thinking the brainstorms. I see the question of, can you give an example of using HPI with an art project? And it's interesting because, I mean, I've seen examples. That was just the amazing thing about traveling to all of your upstate counties, right? There were some amazing murals and pieces, and there was so much. There's so much that can come forward, but I want to really invite, again, I probably missed introducing, I probably missed introducing that I tend to be the data head scientist that delves right in. So this is where I love ideas coming forward of some of those examples of projects, but I know I've seen them. And Eliza, again, why don't you just keep your perpetual hand up, since it's so good to have you here.
Well, I would say that we've been having lots of conversations with artists who are already coming up with fabulous ideas. I had an email last night from an artist, I'm not sure if they are with us today, Love from Truckee, who is considering a piece of public art set in gardens which fuel a food bank connected to Sierra Community House in one of our most vulnerable areas with the highest Latinx community population in the Nevada Plaza area. So that's one thing. And clearly they are going to be creating a sort of a relationship with those two program goals that perhaps are related to public health and environment related issues. But also we've been speaking with an extraordinary filmmaker who wants to build awareness around the idea that 4 of the 6 Klamath River dams have been are now going to be dismantled. And what does that mean to the wildlife, to the watersheds, to the forest health, to the many tribes that live along those shores? And how can we draw awareness for the opportunities and risks therein? There are so many different, but I sort of throw it back. I can't help thinking that with close to 30 people on this call, one of you might not like to share something with us that we can sort of give a little feedback on, perhaps.
Mark? Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and maybe actually let's keep the ideas going. And what I was going to just do is there are some questions that have been building up, right? And I was going to, and I want people to either definitely share these ideas or stick it in the chat too of some of those. For right now, I was going to address the fact that, like Mark, you asked, there's so much emphasis on the HPI index. And again, I wish I'd started this with just the simple thing of, yes, this is a tool, right? And you start first with the program goals, which is what we mentioned in the beginning, and you start that. But this is a tool that likely is going to give you some data for your area that will support what you're proposing to do. So it's just one more way to bolster it. And I only say that we understand, as I said, there's we don't want to suck the life force out of artists, requiring you to do something that is not actually why you do your art, and digging into this could feel overwhelming. So I do not want you to feel this is where you have resources. You have your county partner leads that can help guide you on this information. You can be collaborating with others. Don't feel like you are forced suddenly now to play with spreadsheet or play with this whole data source. But do have a little bit of fun with it, because I will encourage you as you dig into some of these layers, even if it is just to know that there are people that are making decisions to do with counties solely based on data like this. Use it to inspire you as an artist, to show something that actually really, really does matter to the area, that you think could be repeated and brought to other areas and to light, and could improve some of these community conditions. This is the whole purpose of the grant. Artists think outside of such boxes, right? So this is just one tool to bolster your ability for your project to translate to people that are making really big decisions to do with this, maybe on some political level or agency level. So you're just sort of giving the avenue of your project just one little additional avenue of communication. Eliza? Yeah.
Yes, we have a question. Thanks so much, Katrina. We have a question about ideas to where to go to find local data on, for example, mental illness. And that's Andra. Andra, you live in Nevada County. We have a behavioral health, a Nevada County Public Health Department that each year, to the best of my knowledge, has a community health needs assessment and a community health assessment of the county. So you might start there, for example. Have a look locally. We have public health departments, behavioral health. Call them and see what's going on. Yesterday, we also had a fascinating grant writing workshop, and were provided with examples by our grant writing experts of ways to draw upon local data, and we'll be sharing that out with you as it relates to the particular county that they came from, which is Butte. But it'll give you a sense of, okay, so if Butte County has this, my county's going to have it too, and then just take it from there. And again, as Katrina says, there are three different grant categories that are relevant to you. So you need to decide for you, do I want to take this solo? Is my vision sufficient? And am I confident enough that I can create something on my own? Do I want to collaborate with others that might bring expertise and knowledge? Or do I want to perhaps become a resident artist with an agency whose entire mission is to understand the data behind one or other of these program goals? So kind of back to you, but use the resources that you'll see coming into our website as the days pass, as we have more and more of these sessions. Check out the look and listen page. Within the next couple of days, you'll see about 3 new sessions that we've recorded going up on there, and lots of bedtime listening there.
Yeah. And I really want to emphasize, and I'm going to, Gianna wisely told me, for sake of the recording and people seeing this later, they can't actually see the chat. So, but this question that you have of any ideas on where to go to find data on the prevalence of mental illness in the county, as the 2020 census does not include data on invisible situations, AKA mental illness. I really, really want to emphasize this came in, again, it was an issue. And thank you so much for again highlighting it here, because that should have been on my slide of ways in which we notice some of the metrics that aren't available. And the Healthy Places Index peoples are quite aware of this and looking at that. So again, maybe if this is something you're passionate about, think about how your project can help influence and the future of people looking at mental health. This is, this is supposed to be a tool for us, as well as something that we can help inspire to be a better tool. I know that I said I was going to show you how to do the different geographies. I want to do that live, but before I open up a screen and do things live, I just really was curious. If your project spans number of zip codes, great. Don't feel confined by any geography. Think about a watershed, right? A watershed spans multiple counties, cannot be contained by these arbitrary features. The reason we tend to find census tracts so useful is they often do mimic natural geographies and don't change. They're relatively steady over time. Zip codes, as I said, in the upstate region are a little limited because they're just so small that there's a lot of inabilities to draw conclusions from the data. And so I'm going to shift and keep putting your questions in there if you want to see it, but I just want to open up for sake real quickly a live sharing of the Healthy Places Index map and show you how the different geographies open up so that you feel inspired to just think of it like you're in a yard doing a scavenger hunt, right? And you're looking for things. Think of it like you can dig through this and find things, and you just don't really know what you're going to uncover. So have fun with it. And I'm going to go to, where'd my map go? Sorry, I know I said that. There we go. Okay. Sorry, I'm a little slower than most of you on these things. Okay. So now we're on the live piece here. And this is where I opened up on the map. And as I said, I can zoom in or out with I'm using my mouse scroll. You can also use those buttons, but I'm going to bring us into the upstate region. And right now it's on census tract geographies, okay, for the whole upstate region. As I said, I think it was 374, but we'll see if I have that right. Here's the button for the different geographies, select geography. You're going to see that there's quite a few. Census tracts is the default, zip code, in unincorporated areas, cities, town, medical service studies areas, elementary school districts, unified school districts, secondary school districts. Here's the county button though. That's the one. And I'm not going to go so much into the political ones, those change. So if I switch to the counties, then now it's county specific data, and I can zoom on in. And if I want to, look at something to do with the county, again, I'm clicking on the county, and then I'm learning about that county and all its indicators. Again, all of these are things I can open up and see, well, why is that economic so low? Oh, wow, it's the lowest quartile for all three of these: above poverty, employment, and per capita income. And then again, since I talked about this before, every single one of these can be opened up with further information, including this policy opportunity button, okay? Because once I click that, now I get even more information about these, and then even more of the opportunities of ways I could look at it. As I said, just dig in and see. Are you able to see the chat right now? Or is it, okay, because when I'm doing this, okay. Just if there were more, does anyone have a particular tract or geography they would like to see right now? Anyone throw it in? Throw it in the chat if you have anything. Just name the city and I'll show you how you find it.
Can we do LA? Oh, it's not a region.
Sahara, just to answer Sahara's question, Sahara, great to see you here. We could do LA, but our service region for upstate California is really the 19 counties in Northern California. So I think that would be the best use for the most number of us in this meeting, if that's okay. Here we have, Meredith has said 959. Let's go to zip code 95984.
Okay. And I'm leaving it on census tract while I put the zip code in, because I was just curious.
Yeah.
It switched me to zip code. I was just curious if it was going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So there you are. So you took us, I have to zoom out so I figure out where you just took us. I'd like to know. Okay, so you're up in Plumas County, I'm gonna guess. Where's that last, is that Plumas? There are some issues we've also identified with this map, how nice it would have been if they did county boundaries. So here is our Plumas County, your zip code. You see how much lower it is than the county average. We see the different indicators. So in economic, quite low in the employment level. Others are both in the second lowest quartile. As I said, look at how that education score was not dark blue. Bachelor's education or higher, though, is in the lowest quartile. So, what are some of the issues? Are there opportunities for going to college? In Modoc County, we learned that the only way someone could continue on beyond high school was to leave the area. And that was quite impactful for a lot of people with their families and their economics. This is the census response and voting percentage ratios. Transportation, retail density. Again, that was one that I was highlighting as a lot of us are very low in retail density. It's part of why many of us have chosen rural living. So it's a little harder to draw conclusions for rural communities. Housing looks like a big one here for your area. Look at that 1.1 percentile housing habitability. Very low as well in the low income renter and homeowner severe housing cost burden. So how much?
Katrina, if I might just interrupt, Meredith, whose zip code we're following, mentioned that she's working with the Yamani Maidu community, which of course is much larger than a single zip code. So we appreciate that, and we'll be aware of that as we're reviewing applications. Of course, there are so many limitations to measurements and metrics.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and going down, and it's very important to represent different populations here. So there's different ways of looking at all of this data and understanding, you know, the different tribes that are there. This, again, with a zip code, I'm just going to caution that I would encourage, you know, now that I know where your location is, I would encourage, I could stay right here. I can go over here right now and shift it to the census tract. It should keep me in the same area, but now I see what my census tract is for that area as well. So this is the Crescent Mills census tract. You're not far from Greenville, are you? Huh? We visited there. So you can see the data as well for this larger issue with the census tract. So I just highly encourage, unless there's any other questions, I'm gonna.
There's another zip code here. It's 95503.
Okay. All right, good. You just had snow, didn't you? You had snow at Oceanside up there. Okay. All right. So taking you just outside of Eureka for the zip code. So we're looking at it right here for zip code, but because I sort of remember this area from before, I just am curious to look at it as the census tract. So if you see the different census tracts, you'll see there's a lot of dark blue in that area. I can't tell which one's I should have had my. So this is, yeah, so you had, so I'm seeing this larger area here. The zip code's much larger than the census tract. So, and it's a light green. That's why really important to fool around with this, because I notice if I go to census tract for your same area, look at those dark blues right there. Tract 4 especially is all a dark blue tract, lots of information. Now, we have been asked this question, so I'm gonna actually, I just really wanna mention this while I'm here. There are some counties that don't have any dark blue tracts. There are some areas that have the area that you're serving, it doesn't have dark blue near it. That does not necessarily mean, as I said, that you're limited. The goal is to serve the most underserved, least healthy communities, but you can look at these indicators as well. We understand that there's intricacies. We understand there's some counties, as I said, that don't have dark blue, but look at what your interest area is. If it happens to be you're working in an area that has healthier community conditions, consider the opportunity to reach out to other areas that could be served by this project as well that might have lower scores. So again, I could open all these and we could see, you know, your different, all the economics are low. Here's a case where education, preschool enrollment's low, bachelor's education, high school enrollment's higher. I'm going to open the ones that tend to be automobile access. You know, some of the areas we had a project where people were saying about, well, gosh, you know, transportation, yeah, it's an issue here and getting around. And they brainstormed and came up with ideas of buses that had elements of art and ways, and the bus stops, you know, and having different features of community interaction. So so many ideas came forward. You all are the artists that inspire me so much with the way you think of some of these conditions, some of these opportunities. So please feel the invitation more than anything.
Katrina,
yeah.
If I might go back to an earlier question, I can't remember who it was, but someone on our call with us today asked where in our application that we would even reference the HPI community that we hope to serve. all our applications are available to download by PDF on our website. Gianna, if you wouldn't mind putting that particular link to that particular page. And my suggestion is print the applications for each category out and go through them, and that will help you. So I'm looking at the application for both individual artists and artists working together. And there's simply one question within the project description which says, share your project in more depth, consider the following. And one of the 6 bullet points offering suggestions on what to consider in describing your project is this: describe how your project will impact communities in the lowest quartile, that's 0 to 25% of the California Healthy Places Index, or explain other metrics you are using to measure the health of communities you serve, including the lived experience of artists and communities. Katrina, forgive me, I'm almost sure that you've probably shared that already, but just so you know, if this becomes untenable, but yet you know this will provide value and you want to share evidence of that through citing other metrics or other studies or your own lived experience, that's the place that you would share it in your application. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, well, and people asked multiple times about that, so I'm glad you articulated that again, definitely.
There was one question too, whether an applicant can apply to the Upstate California Creative Corps as well as apply to the 18th Street, which is the statewide administrating organization for the California Creative Corps. So maybe Eliza, if you want to just touch on that, just to clarify it.
Absolutely.
Anyone
in the room with us today can apply for. Have you, by any chance, have we shared the map of California as seen by California Arts Council and the service regions? Because if not, that might be a good time for us to share now. And I think I could probably do it. Let's just see if I'm on my personal, let's see. Yeah, I think I can do it with your permission, Katrina.
Oh, please. I love how some people have answered each other's questions. That's awesome.
Yes, isn't it great? So here we see a map. Can everyone see that map clearly? Is it big enough?
Yeah.
So great. So these are the service regions for California under the California Creative Corps program. Our service region is the yellow region at the top. And so in every one of these other color-coded areas, there are other administrating organizations that are not us, and 18th Street is one of them. Yes, you can apply to any one of the administering organizations in any one of those regions if you so wish, if you can prove that you either live in, work in, or serve a community, and you have some pre-existing relationship with a community in need. If you are successful in applying for more than one application in any one of these service regions, you will be asked to choose which grant you wish to accept. There may be some exceptions where if you're the lead artist in one, but you're only a part of a larger application from another lead applicant in another area, then there may be some flexibility then. So I would say if you have great reason to make 2 different applications to 2 different organizations for the same Creative Corps grant in different parts of the state, totally go for it. And then just know that you might have to make a decision on which grant you accept.
I saw Lynn's question asking, I'm supposed to read it, but now I have to find it. Could I open up the social and talk about that indicator? Actually, rather than opening it, I just want to actually have a little discussion here and share, because social measures the census data response as well as voting participation. And that was one of the areas that I just want to highlight. Some people pointed out to us that there are a lot of issues in communities that have people concerned about maybe responding to the census and other aspects. So let's right now, for sake of our information, when you think about social, think about, there's the 4 program goals. So it definitely, this is where that data might not exactly steer you to the answer, but I'm certain you would have some local data to look at sort of community involvement with participation in elections, participation in, Board of Supervisors meetings, all kinds of pieces like that. So I think there's a lot of really appropriate local information to do a social. All right. I'm curious where we're supposed to go just to one. Yeah. So since our time is up, this will all be recorded. You can follow up still with questions. I had that last slide, maybe that just gave that. It's all information we can also put in the chat, but let me just give you I have to screen share first. Sorry about that. I know I'm sort of, there we go. Here we go. So for follow-up, here's those links we had that we went through to show you how to get to the tutorials, how to get to the Upstate region page, how to get to the HPI map directly. Obviously, all you have to really do is if you go to the Healthy Places Index, all those things are there. For contacts for questions, I highly encourage you to start with your county partner lead if you have questions, because they obviously will have resources to do with that local information as well. They might know other people that are considering projects that could help you could collaborate with. So it's a great place to start. If you have a specific question that's sort of glitching out or doing things, I highly welcome you to ask. There's the Public Health Alliance, the people that created this. You're welcome to send questions. They're incredibly responsive. And they're the ones that made this tool. And you also, there were many cases in which I found data glitches. So, I was just sort of one of those pain. I don't think I was a pain. I think I was a resource, but they found a lot of glitches, things that they were able to fix. So I highly encourage you to feel that level of empowerment to be that person too. And you also have my message here too. If you have particular questions, broader questions about the HPI or how to go on in there, but I do highly encourage that you start the tutorials. I will tell you, they are very clear. They don't speak quickly like I do. They take you through each step. So they're really easy to use. So I just wanted to encourage that. And let's see if we had anything else. I think for sake of closing this, were you able to read any of these last questions, or are they all?
You did mention, you mentioned that it was we were sorry that there weren't a sort of county overlay on some of the tracks in the Healthy Places Index. If you go to the page that we've dedicated on our website at Upstate Creative Corps for the Healthy Places Index, I've just popped that in the chat. When you open it up, you can see that we imposed a graphic that does show you that. So it gives you an idea. But even if you live in an area, as Katrina has already shared, that appears to be pale green or only pale blue or even dark blue, you will find something in there that is a clue to help you create a project around in wherever you are. I noticed that there are a couple of people who live in Nevada County on the call today. Martin, I can see your question here. Reach out to us at Nevada County Arts Council. I've also put our email address for Upstate Creative Corps. So if any of you feel unsatisfied that we haven't answered your question, please send us an email and we'll happy to engage with you. There is so much on our website and it'll keep improving. We kind of soft launched this program last week, but literally we're making changes and improvements every day to the site. And we've given you a nice long application period as well. So our deadline for applications isn't until mid-April. So that's super.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Great questions. I really appreciate the way you steered as well to some of the things that really do relate to our rural communities. Keep feeling that potential of highlighting those. And yeah.
And we also will be hosting a grant writing workshop in Nevada County this Saturday. So I'm going to share the link here with all of you.
Okay, so for Nevada County folks, the link is coming. And all right. Awesome. Awesome. Thanks for joining us. Hey, for many of us are in geographies that are, we'll see what happens with this snowfall.
Fantastic. And Gianna and Katrina, I'll just stay on with you for a moment.
Perfect. Perfect. Do you want to end the recording too?
Hi, excuse me for interjecting. I saw Mark's question above that there's a word limit or count limit for only section of the application. Is that I noticed actually when I was looking the other day that there was some character or word counts missing in parts of the application. Has that been resolved, or is that only available online? Can you please advise?
It's actually a sneaky thing on our part, and we've been sprung for. We have intentionally put a very precise, a very precise character count, which is a 500 character count for your project summary. And the reason that we absolutely know that we need that is because if you are successful, well, to start with, it helps when we review applications. It helps the individual panelists to present your application to the rest of the review panel in a very succinct way. But it also is the means by which we can then shine a light on you should you be successful in funding. As for the other lack of word count in every other part of the application, that's actually intentional. We're debating it. California Arts Council are very specific, yet we have consistently found when writing applications for state funds in other grant programs that it can be, the limit can be deceiving. If you have a very large limit, it makes applicants feel that they have to fill that space when in fact they don't. And sometimes the limits can also be just far too short. What we do ask you is to consider succinct applications where possible. Again, I recommend that you download the applications, take a good look, start a Word document or a Google Doc of your own before you start creating an application online. And when it's really perfect and really succinct, give it to us as it is. We may impose a word count, but at this stage, we're wary of doing that. Part of our specific application process, we want it to be flexible. We want to make it very accessible and easy for our applicants. So I hope that helps to explain.
Just for feedback from one person who's received and applies to the Arts Council and to the endowment and to many other places, I prefer to have a limit so that I know what I'm supposed to fit in. So
thank you so
instead
much.
of going on or feeling like, oh, this is too short, it helps me know what you expect. So just giving you that feedback. Thank you.
I appreciate that, Lisa, very much. And it definitely makes a difference.
Thank you. Okay, thanks a lot. These are great. Really appreciate them. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa.